Hello, welcome back to Happy Classrooms. I'm glad you found your way back here to our third video in this series. I'd like to focus on the idea of a non-academic pupil. From my first video, I was talking about my early experiences in the classroom after I'd gone through the initial phases of battling with classroom management, which we'll come to later on, and how separate I felt and sometimes irritated was at pupils who struggled to access the curriculum that I was attempting to deliver, and often blamed them. I had a colleague in the last year of my teaching who I always struggled with when we talked about pupils and her attitude to pupils, and I said to her, why is it you think that pupils don't punctuate? A conversation had led here. She said, I think it's to irritate me. And that tells an awful lot, because it lands all the responsibility for their education on them rather than us. I think one of the big difficulties that we face as teachers is that most of us deliver a subject that we didn't have difficulty with at school. For me, English caused me the least of all difficulties. It was my greatest success. I went on to do it at university, most likely for that reason. And so when I came to teach it, I don't know what it's like to struggle with English. And I think that's the case for many teachers. So the move towards understanding what it's like to be in our classrooms and not cope, that's a big shift of perspective. Now, we talked about that in the last video. One of the ways that I was helped towards understanding and then supporting pupils who are not ostensibly academic was through some really important ideas that I came across through the Support for Learning certificate that I did. If we look at our classrooms and our schools in Britain, for instance, the principal criteria upon which schools are judged is academic performance. In Britain, that focuses entirely on university admissions, which is a very strange focus, really, considering that only under 30% of our students go to university. Now, in some schools that might be different, but an average comprehensive. I remember when Tony Blair was in power, his aim nationally was to move the national figure from 23% going from schools to university to 26%. It was at the time that I was doing my Support for Learning certificate, and I found that quite a strange aim, because an awful lot of people shouldn't be going to university. And since when is that such a big criteria? Especially when you consider other countries. So, for instance, Germany, for me, has quite a much more advanced education system than ours. And it accepts and delivers to a much broader set of skills. So it has tiers, but it doesn't have a ladder in the same way as we do. In the UK, the greatest success is university, then college, and then employment, which is, hopefully that's changing. And in some schools there's a lot of talk about it. When we will manage to leave that elitism, academic elitism behind, I don't know. In Germany, There's an academic route that one can choose at the age of 11, and that's the university route. And it's for, in Germany, universities are not allowed to, certainly at the time of my training, not allowed to present students for degrees that didn't have a job at the end of them. 60% of my local university, Glasgow University's degrees, don't have jobs, specific jobs at the end of them. The 20% of students in Germany choose to go to the academic route, but that's mainly lawyers, accountants, dentists, doctors, that kind of thing. Professions, teaching, lecturing. Then you also have a sector of their schools from 11 till leaving that focus on commerce or business. They also have sectors of schools that pupils can choose that focus on hospitality. And they also have a sector, by far the largest in Germany, and that's looking at trades. Plumbing, plastering, bricklaying, that kind of thing. So, and 50% of all pupils choose to go there. Now, there's academic teaching all through all of that, but the half of all students choose trades because that's where the money is. After 10 years working, most people have to do is, hire a van or two and start employing a person or two, and that's them into 6 figures. And people know that. And Germany also has an enormous value put to trades and tradespeople. It's not seen as the bottom rung as it is in this country, which is ludicrous. It also recognises, obviously, different abilities and skills. I would far rather my mechanic had a brain that soaked in mechanical knowledge rather than the ability to create essays about it. So that kind of information in my support for learning certificate was large for me, and then going back into schools with that in my head made it very easy for me to start each year with a discussion about our different abilities. That discussion for me was a huge element to classroom happiness. It was so important that I would wait for everyone to be there. If something had held back pupils from coming back and we only had half classrooms, I wouldn't start my year really with that big talk. I wanted them all there as much as possible. If someone wasn't there, often they were the unhappy student until I'd had the conversation with them. And basically the conversation went along the lines of, how many of us here don't struggle with reading? I'm teaching English, it's our primary skill. And I would get 30% of each class, saying they could read for hours, and it was the same as watching the television. And then I would say to pupils, can you tell me how many minutes it is that you can read for without getting tired? And show me on the fingers of your hands, 10, 20. And the vast majority of students in almost every year, maybe apart from like a higher class, even then there was quite a significant number, always under 10 minutes, and then they were tired. So the first time I did that was a real surprise, but it also confirmed what I had learned through my support for learning certificate, that the American government did a big piece of research back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and they were looking to fund colour gel overlays for dyslexic people. Now, since the 60s, they discovered that with the right coloured gel overlay or coloured glasses, some people really helps people, especially dyslexic people who have the numbers or words moving around the page, and it would still those numbers with the right colour. So the American government was looking to fund this, went to the societies that were delivering and said, where's your research? And we said, well, we haven't got any. So, well, the government said, well, we'll do the research. Decided to study a whole state, everyone at school, college or university. And they found that colour gel overlays, right enough, with the right colour gel overlay for a dyslexic person, the majority of them, it doubled their retention, their ability to remember information, and almost doubled their reading speed on average. But the surprising statistic that came out of that study was that 70% of all students almost doubled their retention and doubled their reading speed with the right coloured gel overlay. That became significant for me because at the same week I went back into school and got a set of notices from the office on green paper, read it, put it down, and was like, hang on a minute, I can tell you what's on that bit of paper, which was an unusual step for me. It also, at the same time, then started rattling around some memories of mine, where at university I thought I was cool because I only ever took used old books, and the yellower the pages the better. But I just, and that memory rattled around because the lecturer had said the worst thing for dyslexic people is bright white paper with sharp black ink. And I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, because I always struggled with studying. With a good teacher, I remembered their subject. But studying at school was always a difficulty for me. Studying at university, and I had all different strategies in the end for university, for getting through university. But a lot of it was quite uncomfortable. And I realised really that I don't remember what I read. And then I had memories of all the way through childhood and my teens, especially my teens with fiction. I used to have a paper or card bookmark on which I would write the characters' names and the key events, because I couldn't remember anything from one night to the next. I then later switched to reading travel journalism, so you don't have to remember, key events, that kind of thing. So I realised I was dyslexic. In part, I fell into that group. The words didn't move around the page, but I struggled to remember. That helped me. But I think the idea just in general was a big step forward, that I was teaching a subject where 70% of people struggled to remain focused. Now, one of the elements of dyslexia is that you're working in a medium, it's like you're genetically not suited to that medium, you're genetically suited to talk. So epigenetics teaches us, that whatever skills our father and our grandfather or grandmother and mother had, we are going to pick up more easily. And for many of us, we don't come from academic stock. Those of us who do, I would suggest, find academic things more easily. I didn't. So that kind of idea helped me to really engage with the idea that I was delivering a subject that people had significant obstacles to. Not just people with special educational needs, but in general, people struggle to focus and remember things and study. Now, there's a big movement now towards teaching study skills early, and that's brilliant. And teaching also the whole idea of different learning styles. But it helped me to think about obstacles and to have that discussion early in a classroom. I had that discussion, that was day one for me. And I frequently had pupils coming up to me at the end of that lesson saying, "Sir, I've never admitted to anyone the difficulty I've got at school. It's been really hard." And I would always be able to say, well, we're going to work through that together. There are many ways around that. And that, I felt that was a big key to happy classrooms for me, was that discussion early on. about our different abilities. I'm going to look in the next video about specific learning difficulties and how you can talk to them. I hope you join us then. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.